Hey everyone, welcome back to the Offshore Explorer podcast. I'm your host, Chase Offield, and episode 3 is a continuation of my discussion with Ryan Griffin, aka Packfighter. It's really good. Ryan's got some good stories, and we really get into the 2019 Bisbees and his experience with that, and I find it pretty interesting to hear the take of a guy whose first big game money tournament is something like the Bisbees. So welcome back, part 2 with Packfighter Ryan Griffin. Ryan rolled in here this morning with a manila folder, and I wasn't sure what he had, but you got busted out some stuff from your doctor. What's going on there?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I have a friend down in Mexico, and his mom is a MD in natural medicine, and she looks at people's essential and toxic metal content of their body and starts to sort of help dissect various health issues. And so, not to drag this out too crazy, but she was taking a hair sample from her son, who's a friend of mine, so that she could do a hair follicle analysis on toxic metals and essential elements. And I was like, oh, I want in on that. I got to get in on that. So yeah, she sent me a kit. It's cheap to have it done. It goes to a place called Doctors Data Incorporated, and then the results get sent to her, and she gives you an analysis based on her.
What do you like? Just is it like one hair, or like how does it work?
No, it's kind of crazy. It's actually like a pile of hair, and it's
how do you do that?
They send you this kit, and it has this sort of cardboard paper thing that you fold on these dotted lines, and it makes a primitive scale, so it sits like at an angle like this, and you cut hair specifically close to your scalp and from the middle back of your head, and you keep adding more hair to this paper thing, and when it tilts over, you've got enough hair. And
you're kidding me.
I swear. And it ends up being like kind of like, whoa, this can't be right. Did I fold it wrong? Is it right? And then you're like,
that's funny.
So you send in like this bag of hair, and it's kind of more than you would expect, and then a couple weeks later it comes back, and so it's got a whole readout of toxic metals and essential and other elements. So it shows you all the stuff that should be in your body, and then it gives you the level with it too. And so, as expected, based on history of indulging in seafood for a lifetime,
and a lot of tuna, a lot of swordfish, a lot of the ones that they say are like the heavy metal biggest carriers, right?
Let's rephrase that. Yeah, like highly migratory species of fish, highly pelagic fish species, marlin, swordfish, tuna, wahoo.
And for like any folks that might be listening that aren't tuned in on this as much as you and I are, like, why are like the like the bigger pelagic fish kind of like they carry the most metals? Because they're just like chowing through the food chain, right? Like they're picking up the chovies and then the mackerel, and
I think that they're just exposed to so much different variances of the food chain that there are certain areas geographically that have higher content of mercury, methyl mercury, which is only produced in certain types of fish. Like shellfish doesn't produce methyl mercury, so you could eat shrimp, oysters, lobster, clams, mussels. That stuff doesn't produce methyl mercury.
Okay.
So it was interesting. I got this results back, and I was off the charts in mercury, 99th percentile. And
that's scary. How old are you?
35.
Yeah. So that's pretty gnarly.
So she says, in the immediate present situation right now, are you having serious health effects that you're, not able to diagnose or concerned with? And I go, no, not really. I feel great. Strong as I've ever been. Mentally, I feel good.
Yeah.
Aside from just the normal wear and tear and ups and downs we deal with from life.
Right.
I feel great,
Nothing abnormal.
Healthy, strong. She goes, well, that's good. And that's probably how it would stay. She goes, however, I recommend that you stop eating fish altogether.
You're like, excuse me?
I'm like, we're right in the middle of sashimi season. Like, stop eating fish. I mean, that's crazy. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. And so she said, well, if you can't stop eating fish, then, let the big ones go and eat the small ones, eat the ones that haven't had a chance to develop high levels of mercury. So there's the argument that, a larger swordfish would have a lot more mercury than a smaller swordfish. And that could carry also over to tuna and other things as well. So she basically told me to just quit fish. And she then gave me this crazy list of things that can be related to health issues. And the most important thing she brought up to me that was at least in her mind, her personal point of view. She asked me if I had intention of having kids. Are you planning on having kids anywhere in the near future? And I said,
whoa.
As of now, no.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would, I like the idea of a family. So, maybe in the future, there's a chance. And, being 35, it's probably not that far away if it did happen. So she goes, look, if you plan on having kids, you need to do at least a 1-year chelation therapy where you rid your body of this toxic metal element that you've accumulated over the years. She goes, it's really important to not pass that through sperm. She goes,
kidding.
Men have the ability to pass a lot of essential and toxic metals through sperm, and it can be linked to a lot of various things in the development and growth of a child, a fetus.
Whoa.
And so that was her biggest argument with me was, you're young, you're healthy, your body is metabolizing things naturally. She goes, if you quit fish and worked hard at sweating a lot and, being physically active, which I do, I'm a pretty active guy, super into hot yoga.
Oh, wow.
Super into, cardio stuff.
Yeah.
I like to do stuff that
stay active,
stretches my body out, and I sweat, and that stuff, it makes me feel good. That's what I do. So that works great. And then,
so what is chelation therapy?
So basically, they give you a compound of various things that essentially make your liver go into overdrive, and it essentially speeds up the process of what your liver is already doing naturally by removing these toxic elements from your body. So the reason you get high levels of toxic metals is because your liver can't keep up with the amount you're putting in.
Okay.
So your body will naturally diffuse itself of toxins given its normal function. But if you're eating things that are concentrated in things like, say, mercury.
And you were showing me you had a list there of kind of like physical ailments that can be caused by.
Oh, it just goes on forever.
It's like,
yeah.
dude, that is like a serious list. That's like, you guys aren't here, but he's got two or 3 pages stapled together.
There's got to be 30 things. The effects of mercury exposure: irritability, anxiety, loss of memory, muscle weakness, balance loss, stiff neck. Bleeding gums.
I think I could qualify for those first 10.
Oh, it's scary.
Maybe not the gums thing, luckily.
And then there's the later in life, so your senior years, right? Mercury levels could potentially lead to strokes, seizures, those types of things that you might not have to worry about until you get into your 70s, 80s. I don't know, things that are going to affect you later in life, mental health stuff. So you definitely don't want high levels of mercury in your body.
There's probably zero positive about that.
Mm-mm.
I guess it's not totally crazy to imagine that with the amount of fish we eat and the sort of fish we eat, that's the case. I'd be terrified to take that with just the amount of poke that I consume is super probably abnormal. But I was really more shocked with one of the other things that turned up on there.
So there's 3 things that I'm personally on the higher end of, and it's mercury, uranium, and lead. And so mercury being the highest, uranium being the second high. I'm in the 95th percentile for, what they consider to be a toxic level of uranium. And the lady who administered the test and analyzed the results asked me if I worked in the mining industry. She goes, have you had a history of mining?
Which is probably the only time where they see that level of uranium in people.
It's the only logical thing to assume.
Which you don't. Just so people know you're not a miner.
I'm not a miner. No, I don't know anything about mining. So
maybe that down the road.
Gold rush, you never know. However, uranium, where is uranium found? Radioactive
Fukushima.
Yeah, right. Nuclear power plants, nuclear related waste has uranium, correct? To some extent.
So one of the things people joke about have been joked about, I've seen, is these call them Fukushima tuna.
Mm-hmm.
When the first bluefin were starting to show up, right?
For sure.
Everyone was saying Fukushima tuna. Yeah. Because didn't something come out that some of those tuna were carrying uranium, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's been I've heard a lot of different things, but she says, I don't know how to get rid of uranium in your body. It's not like mercury where I can tell you, look, you need to go and you need to get your physical game tightened up. You need to sweat. You need to work out. You need to start changing your diet, eating things like, cilantro helps. you know.
And there's probably like some supplements that
Exactly.
that work.
There's a lot of ways for a younger, healthier guy to,
Cilantro, huh?
Cilantro is a good one. Yeah. Cilantro is great at toxic metals. Again, right back to, I already love cilantro. So that's really easy. I just incorporate that a lot more into my diet. And sweating is the best, get yourself out, get active. I mean, if you want I think the key to healthy life is, weight bearing exercise and sweat. If you want to be healthy and feel good, those are two things. And here's why, it helps your body rid itself of things that are toxic. And in my case, it's, mercury and uranium. So,
and then lead too, right?
Lead. Yeah. Which is, life of a fisherman, I guess. I don't know for sure. And she said, well, do you work with metal? I go, yeah, of course I work with metal. I have a lot of history working with metal, especially in the last 5 years. I built a boat out of metal, but there wasn't that much lead involved.
How many, lead split shots did you bite with your teeth as a kid?
All of them.
Right. And I mean, we still handle lead with all the time, right?
Sure. So you got to imagine that, through your body's largest organ, your skin, contact with lead over years and years and years, 35 years, I've been fishing for at least 25 of those 35 years, every year, putting a lot of emphasis. You got to think there's exposure there to that. And that's probably what that is. And so
what was your takeaway? Like, were you like, I need to cut back on my consumption of fish? Or
my takeaway was, wow, how many of these things on this list of possible side effects of mercury levels am I suffering from? And I don't know for a fact.
Or you're going to start seeing as you age.
Am I living a hindered physical lifestyle? Is all of a sudden, do I have these headaches? Are they from the mercury? What is this stuff going on here? Is, what's really affecting my body? I got to get rid of this stuff. I don't want it in my body. I want to get rid of this mercury and see if I feel better than I do now, which I think I feel good now. So, and I don't want to have a potential situation where, there's a health issue with a future child. That's a freaky thing. You want to have the best start possible for anything like that,
Yeah, for sure.
So, for me, it was kind of like, well, I always joked like, got to have off the charts mercury levels. Well, guess what? I really do have off the charts mercury levels. And there's probably a lot of you out there that also have off the charts mercury levels if you eat a lot of pelagic fish. And so, between traveling around to places where we do catch a lot of marlin and tuna, I've eaten a lot over the years, and so I guess that's where you end up getting this from. And some people are probably more efficient their bodies are more efficient at getting rid of it than others and so forth. But it's definitely something to be aware of. If you're going to be a seafood consumer and you're going to look at it as something that's a staple in your diet, especially if you're someone like me who, puts a huge emphasis on going out to catch, harvest, and cook their own food, you don't want to be overdoing it. If there's toxic elements that are getting into your body, you want to maybe adapt and change your diet a little bit so that you're not emphasizing that stuff as much as you were before. So I think that it's an eye opener for our individual health.
It's probably like, like everything, you need to consume that sort of fish in moderation. I mean, it's
kind of the other thing too. Like there's a lot of this advocacy for like, fuck cancer. Well, why not like fuck McDonald's or like all the preservatives and crap that's in our food,
Right.
Isn't that really the root of a lot of that evil, and things like,
no question.
Uranium and mercury and lead. I mean, those can't bode well to your, health and longevity. And so, you just want awareness, right? So a cheap test, hair follicle analysis.
I'm sure like myself, there's probably like people listening that are serious fishermen that are curious, like what their levels would be like. Is this something you can just like order online or something like?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What was the company called, the one you used?
The one that did the hair follicle analysis is called Doctors Data Incorporated. And they're like a nationwide, testing facility. Like they do urine analysis, blood analysis, hair follicle analysis. And then, so like you could go to your doctor, let's say, and you could say, hey, I'm interested in my toxic and essential element levels in my body. And, I heard that you could do a hair follicle analysis. I'd like to do that. And they could order that for you. You'd probably don't even need to go to a doctor. You just go online probably and find out, it's not something that's hard to attain. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'd be curious to check that out.
It was cheap. It was like, $100. They send you the kit, you cut the hair, you send it in. A week later, you get the results. And then you could have, say, somebody like, depending on what your what your beliefs were in natural medicine or Western medicine. You could go and then have a doctor analyze the results that you got
and come up with some sort of plan to mitigate it.
You could look into it further. Yeah. We're so lucky to have all the insight to our health these days, and everything's at our fingertips. Why not utilize it? So this was kind of fell into my lap. I didn't really go out seeking this, thinking, oh my God, I'm having health issues and I should find out.
Yeah, you weren't like worried about it. It just kind of fell in your lap.
Curiosity more than anything. And sure enough, well, look at this. This is crazy, and obviously I eat a lot more fish than probably the average person ever does.
I think it also goes back to like being cognizant of what we do and like being able to have an informed opinion on it. Like instead of like just listening to whoever, like the media or whatever, saying eating tuna is bad, eating swordfish is bad, it's got mercury. It's like, now you're able to say with yourself, like, I've got like a very gnarly percentage of these heavy metals in my body. And is that a result of like fucking up the ocean and dumping pollutants in it for the last 100 years? Or
are we sitting here thinking we're going out catching these incredible sources of food for our friends and family, and really
healthy protein that's like
really, these big bluefin are just mercury and uranium ridden?
Yeah.
We don't really know.
It's very interesting. I it's one of those things where I kind of have just plugged my ears and been oblivious to it. But, like seeing that like definitely shines a light on like, oh, that's something like that could be an issue going forward.
I would say one of the most important things to me is my health, and right. I think everybody, has to have that outlook to some extent or another, but, more people don't, I think, unfortunately. But I mean, I want to be as healthy, strong, fit, and mentally sound as I could possibly be. I want to live as long as I can. I want to fish as long as I can possibly fish.
For sure.
I want to keep chasing, animals in the outdoors. I want to keep doing this life I'm living as long as I can. I don't want to be sacrificing any of my time here on this earth, which is already so limited, to a health issue that was from having too much of something or exposed to too much. We all know the inherent risks in smoking, for instance. Is there the same inherent risks in eating certain types of fish?
Yeah. And then, who knows that, obviously like the sample size is so much smaller than like folks that smoke or participate in other unhealthy things.
How would we ever know?
Yeah. How would we know?
Until you start compiling, more people. Oh, look, I had it too. Look at these. Oh my gosh. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's something as a fisherman, other fishermen, I think should be aware of and could appreciate. And maybe you'll go out and get a hair follicle analysis test, and maybe it'll change your lifestyle and you'll be a healthier person from it.
Yeah. And I think like the other takeaway is like, I don't think anyone's like saying to completely avoid eating tuna or swordfish.
No,
it's like just
moderation.
You probably don't want to like eat it every night.
It's a moderation thing. I think with anything, right? It's like, like what's in the beef you buy at the store?
Right. Probably don't want to know.
Right. I mean, same thing goes for anything, right? Like, how do you really be accountable and sustainable and eat healthy? And I mean, it's really hard in today's world.
You were saying like one of your the methods that are possible causes of like being exposed to lead was building your boat.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was something that I was interested in chatting with you about. That was like a long build. Walk us through like how the idea started to build your own boat and like the whole process, the trials and tribulations of like taking on such a mega project as that.
So like in 2015, me and my friend Pete, who is Pete Carson from the Carson family, his older brother Toss, he started Bear Flag. Their family roots are in fabrication. They own a fabrication shop in Costa Mesa called Marine Fabricators.
Okay.
If you bought a Pacifica and took delivery of it, say in the 80s from Pacifica in Costa Mesa, there's a great chance that your Pacifica at some point in time or another had some work done by Marine Fabricators. He was building beefier bow rails and he was making larger capacity aluminum bait tanks. He was improving fuel systems. He was doing metal fab there. And a lot of it, there's a lot of boats in this harbor that have got some of Tom Carson's Marine Fabricators work attached to it. And so anyways, Pete and I are sitting around and we're talking. He wants a boat and I wanted a boat, and we've always liked aluminum boats, And so he goes, let's partner up and we'll build a boat. And I was thinking to myself, all right, man, let's do it, And
you don't know, like, you're not a boat builder.
I don't have a background in metal fabrication or anything like that, but I'm, hands-on guy. I've done a lot of construction over my life. I've been, I've remodeled several houses. I've rebuilt trucks. I mean, I know how to build stuff. I'm confident. I can, tools, I know how to grab a tool and make it work and do stuff. Not afraid to grab a big project by the horns. I had no idea what we were getting into with this boat build.
What was some of your inspiration? Like, what was like the sort of boat you were like looking to build?
Well, the biggest problem for us is that we couldn't really find a platform that really fit what we wanted to do. We wanted to have something that, was lightweight.
You didn't want to like just go out and buy a Parker like everyone else.
I hate Parkers, man. No offense to you guys that are on Parkers, and hats off to these guys that are making a living on them. I think they're miserable. I don't like them. I don't think they're not very comfortable to me at all. And I mean, they work. They get you there. They freaking catch fish.
Right.
They're available.
But you wanted something different. You wanted to put your blood, sweat, and tears into something.
We wanted something that was for that reason too, but we also wanted to create like the Prius of fishing boats. We wanted something that was really efficient. Like, I just so sick of spending so much damn money on fuel to go fishing, and so difficult to trailer a boat around. And like, we just wanted something that was lightweight, that was high performance, that was fuel efficient and bulletproof, solid, something that, an icebreaker, man. I mean, like, you're not going to hurt this damn thing. There's no paint to chip.
Right.
You're not going to, we wanted something like that. And we wanted to build it with the systems and the functionality that we thought was best for our, for our local fishery, and the stuff that, I and Pete both wanted to achieve with it. So here we are, we're in this brainstorm phase, and he finds this, marine architecture company up in Oregon called Specmar. And the guy who started Specmar works with his 2 kids, and they've got a huge array of boats available on their website, and you can buy a file for, you can go to his website, you can choose a boat that he designed, and keep in mind, it's just the hull. So a lot of people, it's this funny world. They go, oh, is it a kit boat? Is it a kit boat? Well, let's not get carried away. The word kit is such a bad word.
That's got a gnarly, that's like a offensive word to most people.
I just cringe when I hear that because, like, okay, well, let me ask you this. Did you build your house like from your, did you imagine it and just build it? Or did somebody come and design it and give you a set of blueprints to build your house? Like, you had an architect involved.
You have a kit house.
Well, let's just say if you buy an aluminum boat and you get a set of plans, well, you just had an architect design a boat that was,
paper. They gave you a set of plans as paper.
Somebody with a lot more experience in designing boats and displacement and hulls, designed our boat.
Right.
We bought a set of plans for the hull. And I mean, it was the hull, just the shell.
Yeah, you're not a naval engineer.
Our boat didn't have a design for the pilot house or the bait tanks or the fuel system or the storage spaces or the cap rails or the bolsters or any of that. It just was literally a shell. So, okay, you find a hull that you like, you want to build it, you buy the cut file, you decide who you want to buy the metal from. In our case, it was a place called Alaskan Copper in Washington. They CNC router cut the pieces for our hull, and they sent it down on a semi truck. And here we are with the semi truck showing up with a 25-foot long pallet and like close to 2,500 pounds of aluminum in flat pieces. And they're all marked. Everything's got a serial number and a place to go. And
dude, just like listening to like the beginning of this story, like, I'm not a crafty, I'm not a builder. And I'm like, dude, I'm like
stressing you
shaking my head here, like so stressed. Like, that sounds like the gnarliest thing I've ever heard.
I had a great conversation with my dad one night about it, and he went, why don't you just buy a boat?
Yeah.
And I go, well,
that's why guys buy Parkers. It's,
He goes, I know I'll never talk you out of this idea, but I know it's going to be a tough one. Are you sure you want to do that? And I go, well, yeah, I want to build a boat. I think that'd be awesome. And build my own boat. We can do it. We have the place to do it. You don't understand, Dad.
And you're young and you're fired up and you're like, hell yeah, let's do it.
And he's all right. Well, cool. Go for it, and blah, blah, blah. So here comes this truck full of metal. And that was like in 2016, I believe.
And they dropped it off at the fabricator.
Yeah, they dropped it off in Costa Mesa for us, and we unloaded it. And I mean, we got.
And you just got like parts like strewn out, and you're like, okay.
We got the hull put together pretty quick. It went together fairly fast. But then the project, it's like framing a house. Like, well, they can come and pour a foundation, and you can get the framework done pretty fast. But boy, when you start designing all the interior stuff, it starts slowing way, way down. And so, we ended up, getting a lot of headway on it. And luckily, Pete and I both have a schedule that allowed us to put a lot of our time into it. But, when you're doing...
You guys like weren't just grinding every day. Like you're going on trips, you're doing your thing. Like,
I'm still working.
So like
Pete's got a family with kids.
I'm sure like the boat was like, there was like just weeks would probably go by with nobody was really working on it, right?
There was doldrums.
Yeah.
For sure. And there was times where we're just on the drawing board,
Mm-hmm.
So we had to design our bait system. Our first bait system completely failed. Our tanks were too big. They were displacing a little too much weight. We didn't have the plumbing the way we liked it. We had to rebuild our fuel system, a couple times. We had to basically build everything we built that we came up with. We had to build it, realize where we didn't account for. We backed ourselves into a corner. We didn't account for this. It's so hard to see the foresight of something, the final product. I can design it. I know in my head, I want this to look that way or to function that way. But the building process of creating it and actually welding it in place and then having it work the way you envisioned it, man, it's super hard. I mean,
I can't even imagine.
People that are good, competent metal fabricators that can design and build something and install it and it works. Holy moly, those are some badass guys.
Yeah, dude, I like being someone that like doesn't have those abilities. Like I'll find myself like watching like the show, like how it's made, like building a car or boat or whatever.
It's mind blowing.
It's like, dude, I'm like boggled. Like I'm like, I just like, even like I look at like simple things. I'm like, dude, how did someone did this come to fruition? And it's like,
unbelievable.
I just don't have that like ability, and like I'm just boggled by it.
Yeah. And so, we got into a lot of these really tough situations that were just a mental disaster to overcome, and it really challenged me personally.
And I'm sure it took way longer than you guys ever imagined, right?
We thought we were going to start that project, and we gave ourselves a year. We thought we could do that. We could build this boat in 12 months. We could get this thing dialed in, and we're going to be out fishing and chasing tuna around the ocean in like 12 months.
Best laid plans.
It ended up taking a little more like 2.5 years to get the thing finished up. And now it's dialed. We love it. It's a great boat. But there's some things that we weren't happy with that, again, it's not our fault. We couldn't foresee them.
But that's the thing. Like, I mean, I guarantee you could talk to like any boat builder.
Nothing's perfect.
No, especially, and not the first one.
No, but like something like this, for instance. So we bought this hull and the set of plans we bought, and trust me, we went back and forth with the architect who designed it a whole bunch of times, and we questioned the height of the deck. He recommended the height of the deck be such and such, and all the stringers and all the frame supports were all designed for the deck to be at this certain height. And it seemed low. If you stand on my boat, I mean, the bolster is up almost at my hip, and I'm a big guy. I have a lot of freeboard. It feels like you're in a big boat, not a small boat.
Okay.
When you're standing in it, it feels like you're standing at the rail of a sport fisher or something.
Oh, wow.
Our decks could have been, 4 or 5, even maybe 6 inches higher than they were, and it would have solved some issues for us and given us some more clearance.
So your gut was like telling you it was too high, and it turned out probably was.
Not really. We had a lot of faith in this design.
Okay.
Here, this guy designed the hull. He knows where the deck's supposed to be on this boat, blah, blah, blah. But there were some things, that's the most dangerous things in life, are assuming, back to like, well, this guy's an architect. This is his world. He engineers these boats for a living. Like, he obviously knows where this deck, we never questioned it until after the fact it was in, and we're like looking at it, and we're like, oh, it seems like it's kind of low. I wonder if it's supposed to be, it's going to be fine. No worries. Well, our deck's too low, and we don't really like where it's at in relation to the water line outside of the boat. And it would have saved us a lot of trouble in terms of drainage and just the overall room we have below deck to be able to, a few inches is miles in that world.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And then we, of course, went overboard on our boat because, we're building it ourselves. And so we've got every bell and whistle in the world on it. And it's like, this simple idea really expanded into something that was really complex.
Right.
And, I mean, what we have now is like a NASA grade, a little aluminum spaceship. I mean, the thing.
Yeah, I've never been on your boat. I've seen you out fishing, and I've seen like some photos and stuff. But the thing looks sick. Like
it's a tank.
Yeah, and then you got like, it's like pretty tricked out with like, technology and
we've got
all the extra stuff.
State of the art everything.
Yeah.
We didn't skimp anywhere.
And what were your final specs on that thing? How big is that boat?
It's a 21-foot boat, and with the pulpit and motor and everything, it's probably closer to 24 and a half overall, but it's wide. It's got an 8-foot beam.
How much fuel
We hold about 60, somewhere between 65 and 70 gallons. It's hard to get an exact on it because of the taper of the tank, and we never know if we're 100% full or not because of the way of fills. But somewhere between 65 and 75 gallons, and we've got a 150 Yamaha on it, and I can cruise. I got autopilot and 20 knots in my trim system. I mean, I can go over to the island for like 6-7 gallons of fuel, and
nice.
I can buzz around Catalina all day long fishing. I come home and I burned 25 to 30 gallons of fuel.
What did you guys wind up with your bait system? Do you just got like a center little bait tank, or?
Well, that's the thing. So we decided, we had the layout to do two, one on the port, one on the starboard corner. And so if you ever decide you are going to build a boat, don't do two of everything. It adds so much work, and it adds such an element of design and functionality. Two of everything adds so much work. Oh my God. Just one bait tank's plenty. Should have just done one.
Yeah.
Going back on it now, but we have two, and it's badass. When you're out fishing with your buddy, he's got his side, I got my side. If you're sea bass fishing, everybody's gear's spread out. It's nice, but we ended up with two, and they're integral, built into the back of the boat, basically into the transom. We just made them smaller. Our first ones are just too big.
Do you think you'd ever do it again, or are you kind of like done with the boat building?
It's funny how that works. Like, I don't think I will build another boat. I might dabble in, like, say, a project that's almost done and get into a boat where it needs some additional customized work on it. It's an aluminum boat or something that I wanted to finish per se. I wouldn't start from the ground up again.
Yeah.
From the framework to the insulation, blood, sweat, and tears, man. You're
stoked though, like with like the final outcome. Like,
we're really happy with it now, and it's totally unique, and it's one of a kind. It's really efficient. It gets super fishy.
So wait, was last year your first year?
Last year was like
fishing it.
Technically the first year. Yeah.
I think I remember I was like out fishing the day you got that big sea bass, or the day before, right around when you got that big sea bass, was like the first, real, trophy fish you caught on that boat, right?
Yeah, and I'd been fishing for a few, like a week prior to that. I'd been out quite a few times trying to catch a sea bass, and man, we finally caught a good one. It was like close to 60-pounder. I think you were out fishing that same day, maybe.
Yeah. That had to have been a good feeling, right?
It really brings it all to the ground level, and I don't know that you could ever appreciate something so much if you hadn't have gone through all the trial and tribulation to get there. It broke me down. I was crying, man. Like,
yeah,
3 years basically of, sweating and trying to do, you got so far into that project, there is no turning back.
Well, because you probably, I guarantee there had to have been a lot of days where you're like, the idea that you were going to be on that boat catching like a close to 60-pound sea bass, like probably seemed like, oh, dude, that's not going to happen. Like,
we kept setting goals, okay, it's going to be the 4th of July. We're going to have it in the water before the 4th of July. Okay, we blew that. We're going to be in the water by, we'll be ready for the fall tuna bite, okay, we fucking blew that, man. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it's winter again. Let's just
setback after setback.
Literally 10 steps forward just to walk backwards 5 more. It was so much of that. I hated it.
Now you've gotten some big sea bass.
Yeah.
You got a swordfish.
Swordfish had some great days fishing yellows at the island.
Have you got bluefin on it yet?
Yeah, I caught my first bluefin on the boat last week, February 22nd or something like that, or whatever, 2 weeks ago.
Crazy, man.
And, I was leaving the harbor to go halibut fishing and found out my buddy was right outside of us catching bluefin. And I ripped out there and got lucky to catch one on just a crazy high pressure, flat calm, beautiful day in February.
Yeah, I think like those weird, like winter bluefin that kind of just, breeze through here.
So cool, man.
It seems like the guys are only like having any success on those like super greasy days, like because I think it's all sight fishing, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to see that stuff working.
And it's run and gun, and it's like they're up and down, and it's like, dude, you need like a vessel like what you're rolling in, like to even play that game.
Our boat's great for that because it is really fast. I can get up and boogie, and it's not fast in the comparison to a lot of these guys that have these big center consoles that do 50, 60, even 70 miles an hour. We're not doing that, but it's very maneuverable, and it's very easy to get around on, and it's a great boat for chasing around that kind of stuff and doing the kind of fishing that I personally like to do when I have time to go fishing on my own, which is, if the weather's nice, I'm going out fishing. And
you'll fish solo a lot, right?
I do fish a lot solo. Yeah.
And that's like one of the, I like to fish by myself too. And I'm fishing on a bigger boat, so it's like kind of tougher to do, but you can still do it. But that's like one of the things that I like. You know, I grew up fishing on a Mako, like a 22-foot.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, I loved being able just the ease of everything's like within an arm's reach, and you can do everything kind of by yourself. You're not relying on other guys.
We put an emphasis on that. You know, I wanted to have a boat that was really easy to be functional on by myself fishing, because I know that I will fish a lot. You know, it's not a lot of days in the middle of the week where guys are going to go fishing with you. It's just, they can't, you know. So, and then we wanted out of the elements. Pete and I were both just disgusted with how many days we spent just getting so torched by the wind and sun and just blasted with salt spray the whole way home. Like those days are long gone, man. Because
what were you rolling on before that?
Oh, I had a little 21-foot Ponga.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a salt spray machine, man.
Yeah.
You know, which was cool for local fishing. I didn't really do a lot of like hardcore offshore stuff or anything, but
right.
You know, that was a brutal boat to just be on in the elements all day. And, you know,
dude. I mean, when I'm out sea bass fishing, like on the backside of Catalina, and I see some of the local salty dudes like in their little Pongas, I'm just like, man, that is like, you got to be pretty hardcore to cut your teeth doing it like that style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gets old fast.
Oh, it does for sure. And I mean, we were over that. So that was part of the reason. Like, you can't really find a 21-foot center console that's light, efficient, and has all the fishing attributes that you want as a hardcore West Coast fisherman and able to get out of the elements. So we have a fully enclosed pilot house, man. I jump up on my seat, shut both doors, pin them shut, run 20 knots with the autopilot on. And if it's cold, I flip the seat heater on, man.
Oh, wow.
I'm hanging out. It's chilling in there.
Yeah, and that's nice.
You know, I took a buddy over. We went diving over at the island a couple weeks back and ripped over in the afternoon. We dove till about midnight, got back on the boat, put our warm clothes on, jumped in the pilot house, flipped on the seat heaters, and cruised all the way back home, totally just unbeaten up. You know, It was so nice.
That's deluxe. That's nice upgrade from what you were rolling in before.
So to have that all come to fruition and be able to jump on your own boat that you built after all those years of just like literal blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, I got a bunch of different messed up things. I mean, Pete hurt his hand bad in the shop one day. I got my eyes torched welding one day.
Oh, gnarly.
And not from, being, aware. We were welding inside of a tight spot on the boat, and the refraction of light was bouncing off the metal that was behind me and into my mask from the back.
Oh, wow.
And you don't feel it when you're having it happen. It happens like a sunburn. So later, you're all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, I'm so sunburned. I woke up at like 2 a.m. My eyes were on fire and I couldn't see, blinded. I spent like 2 days fully blind.
That's scary, dude.
From welder's eye, flash burn.
Yeah.
And, I had an
learned the hard way.
I had an Uber I use Siri on my iPhone, calling Uber. And the Uber guy shows up to my house and I find my way out there, and get in his car, and he goes, oh man, have a good night, huh? He thought I was coming from leaving some chick's house late. And I go, dude, I got to go to the hospital, man. You got to take me over to the emergency room. And he looked back. He's like, what's wrong? I was like,
can't see.
I'm blind. It was horrible.
Dude, that's heavy. That's gnarly.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go fishing, man. I want to get welder's eye.
Yeah.
Flash burn.
I hear you.
So the whole project is pretty wrapped up, and we're super happy with the boat now. But I do not recommend building your own boat from aluminum unless you're willing to go through some serious blood, sweat, and tears and hardships. And it's, I wish I could go back and capitalize on those 2 really great years of bluefin fishing, where I could have been out creating memories with my friends on the water.
Yeah.
I think about it that way. I think, wow, man, I could have just bought a boat. I mean, I couldn't have really. I don't, I need, that was the other side of it, the financial side of it. We were able to build this boat
and put in the money as you went
because of the resources to have the shop to build it, a place to fabricate aluminum. I mean, if you paid a fabricator to build our boat and do the work that we did to it and have what we have now, you just spent a fortune.
Well, and also you weren't just like having to plop down all the money at once.
No,
you're building it.
It was a slow bleed. We trickled into it. And all in all, we ended up building that thing for cheap, considering what it cost if you went out to go buy like, say, a Pacific skiff or had a boat sent over.
So it didn't just turn into a full-blown money pit where like you were like, oh, shit.
No.
Should have just bought the boat off the rack.
No, not at all. Not like that at all. We have a screaming deal on that thing in terms of what we put into it. But, we worked hard to source good deals on stuff, and we went through the ringer to, utilize our connections in the fishing industry and the electronics industry. And if you're resourceful and have time to plow through that stuff, you can find great deals on things. And so we were lucky, but yeah, we ended up with a great boat, but I wish I could go back and spend a lot of that time I was getting just torched in that shop.
Yeah, I hear you. There was some good fishing I'm sure you missed when you were just,
But, I look back and I'm proud of what we did, and I'm proud of that project, and I'm happy to be on that boat when we're on it.
It's a killer boat, and I love seeing it out there and knowing the story behind it. And how did you guys come up with dorsal?
Well, from the old Swordfish boat, the dorsal here in Newport Beach. I can't remember. You probably know more about the history of that boat, but what was the build on that thing? Do you remember?
I honestly I know the exact boat you're talking about, but I do not know the history of it.
I mean, it was like 70, 80 feet, wasn't that boat? Anyways, there was a boat in Newport Beach called the Dorsal, and it was, a predominant sword fishing boat at one point in time. It was the pelagic of, say, the
harpoon boat,
of the 60s or whatever. It was a harpoon boat. It was a big, giant yacht with a plank on it, and they used to conch the swordfish. And, the name Dorsal is that's a great boat name. We're sitting there going, well, that's a great name for a boat. They sold that boat. That name left the boat. And, the harbor needs a boat named Dorsal. And so Pete and I came up, my old boat was called Pack Fighter. And, people get the misconception I'm not a fighter. That name, it was from, I saw a boat when I was traveling, and it was called Pacific Fighter. It was a container ship. And I was like, oh, that's a cool name for a boat, Pacific Fighter. Like, we're always out there just fighting with the elements and fighting to get out to the fish. So Pacific Fighter is really it was the name of my boat. It was the name I thought was cool for a boat. And so Pack Fighter has just stuck with me forever, but no affiliation with any fighting.
Yeah, I love it.
It's not a fighter.
It's a sick name. You were mentioning before, like, your boat's quick, but like it doesn't go as fast as a lot of these like hot shot center consoles that are packing like triple 200s, and a lot of the like Florida rigs that guys are having to travel 50, 60 miles out and back each day.
Totally.
But you did fish, you fished last summer with Evan Salve, joined up on his operation to fish the tournament scene down in Cabo. What was that like?
That was a total just one of those opportunities that just fell into my lap.
Yeah. How did what was the nexus of that whole deal?
I was actually working out in New Mexico, elk hunting, and I got a call from my buddy Jeff here, who's a local captain. He runs a really beautiful yacht called the Cowboy. It's an 87-foot Weaver custom build. He called me up and said, hey, man, I got this trip down to Mag Bay and then to Cabo, and I could really use your help. I need a guy that can do food. I got the owner. He's coming with a buddy. And where are you at? Can you do it? And I go, I'm in New Mexico, man. It's kind of a jaunt for me to get out there. He goes, well, if you can do it, here's the dates, and I'll take care of you, and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, God, I was ready to kind of do something different. It was sort of the end of the hunting season for us out there, and there wasn't much going on at the ranch, and there's plenty of people to kind of fill in. So I booked a flight, flew into San Diego, jumped on the Cowboy, and spent like 10 days fishing our way down to Mag Bay, and had an incredible trip with those guys on the Cowboy. And when I got to Cabo, Evan Salve. I'm
going to interrupt you really quick.
Sure.
Because you got a pretty nice sword on your way down, right?
Yeah, we did. So that was one of the coolest parts about that trip. I should go back. I got to San Diego to get on the Cowboy. We provisioned. Everybody got on board, and we had hopes to go fish Alijos Rocks.
Okay.
We weren't on a big timeline, and everybody was like, let's go to Alijos. Alijos would be rad this time of year. I bet it's freaking game on. I've never been to Alijos. I'm like, let's go to Alijos. I'm stoked on that idea.
Yeah.
Well, in order to get to Alijos at gray light, like 3.5 days later from where we were standing at that time, we needed to kill like 7 hours somewhere, or just slow down and go like 1 knot.
Yeah.
So rather than that, we decided, well, we'll go down and stop on the, I think it's called the Potato or the Finger Bank or something. It's like right there off the beach outside of Ensenada.
Potato is further down.
Yeah.
Unless there's 2 potato banks. Which
I don't know. Yeah. I can't remember exactly. Anyways, long story short, we got a little bit of dope from like this old timer. Well, back in the day, that little spot there was a pretty gem spot for sword fishing.
But you guys, like, you must have had like some sort of like plan to deep drop, because you guys had like a brand new LP set up on that boat, right?
Well, that boat's dialed in for tournament fishing. So
that was going to be their like dredge rod?
That's their dredge rod. Yeah. They've got 2 LPs. They've got a full set of 130s, 80s, 50s.
Okay. So that wasn't like they didn't like pick that up just for deep dropping.
They did, though. I mean, they had we had several different rods for those LPs, you know, and so we had deep drop rods for those LPs. And so, you know, sword fishing was on the docket, you know.
Yeah, it was just starting to blow up here.
Yeah, and so the guy, Jeff, who I was with, he had caught one the week before with these guys, and they, you know, right out on the 9 when all that fish was biting good on the 9.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we knew that there were swordfish biting. It was happening, you know, people were catching them. And so we left with the premonition, well, if we're going to go to Alejos, let's leave like now. So we'll end up having like most of tomorrow through the tide, and we can fish somewhere along the way down, and let's go try this little spot. Because
that's crazy.
Somebody told us in this,
just like you'd heard through the grapevine about this like Misto spot,
like in the 70s, it was a great swordfish spot, and like it still gets good sometimes. So anyways, we get there like early the next morning because we just putted our way from San Diego down there slow. It's good weather, and we wake up and it's just like ugly green water, like horrible looking, you know, not bad for swordfish necessarily. And you know, there's a lot of life though, a lot of shearwaters and bait, and we looked around, and we actually did a drop. We set up, and our drift was all screwy. We didn't like it, so we wound it up. Mind you, I've never done any deep dropping for swordfish other than one other time with some guy from New Zealand years ago who I don't really. It was a lot different technique, and I wasn't very hopeful at the time, and I never had enough like energy to go try it again because I wasn't that impressed. But
well, and too, like a lot of the guys, like that's why like that I feel like the deep dropping thing never like caught on sooner here was because there wasn't a lot of people having success. So it's like you're not gonna like put in the time.
No.
When like there's nothing, like you're like, I don't even know if this is gonna work.
Well, hats off to those guys that did put in the time and get the buzz going, you know, because that's cool. It started a huge revolution of you know, a new fishery here for all of us SoCal anglers, you know. Anyways, we get down there, we finally get on a better drift where we like what we're doing. And mind you, I've never done any deep dropping. And so I'm watching this whole rig get put together, and Jeff's like, yeah, put this there and just, you know, rig that like that. And okay, I'll show you. Here's a squid deal. And we get this wind on leader and these squid. We start putting it out in these lights, and I'm just looking at this whole thing. I go, this would be a cool way to kill some time. And we set the rod out, and then we put our first bait out on a float, and I'm still setting up the second, you know, our tip rod. And I'm looking up occasionally, and I'm looking at the float out there, and I'm looking back down, and I look up, and I'm like, oh, the float's laid over, Jeff. He's like, no way. It's all the, dude, oh, wow. The float's laid over. And we're looking, and we're watching.
And you're like, just no way.
And then it stood up, and we're like, okay, it's back up. Maybe it got caught on some kelp.
Right.
And then it laid over. And I'm like, well, when do you know for sure? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well,
I love it.
I was like, well, should we put this other rod out? You know, the float's not that far from the boat. It's only like, you know, we were just going to back up to the float and then start setting our other rod. And, you know, we weren't even there yet. And the float's laying over. It's right there. And I go, well, what do you want to do? He goes, I don't know. Let's go pull it in. So we start backing up to the float. And as we're backing up to it, line starts coming off the reel, and the float goes underwater. And we're
no way.
We're on.
Okay. Now there's like no like question.
We got something. Yeah. And we're in reverse, and there's line leaving the reel, and it's freaking going off.
And this is on an LP?
Yeah. We're on the big dog. Yeah. 1200 LP, you know, super nice, but not very sporting at the end of the day, honestly.
No, but I mean,
yeah,
you know.
It's cool. I get it. If I had the money, I would buy one.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like sporty, but
no,
it's, you know,
not at all.
It's a means, and
hey, if you got one, use it.
Yeah.
You know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So we, you know, go get the float off the line, and we start fighting this thing. The thing came right up. It came up jumping like right away, you know, like most of them I think do.
Right.
You know, it just looked like a freaking gorilla. It was so big out there, huge. We're like, oh my God, is that the fish? You know, it's jumping pretty far out. It came right to the boat. I mean, we just wound the thing right up to the boat.
When you guys first saw it come out of the water, were you like, holy shit, that's a big one?
We were losing our minds. I mean, it was out on the surface doing full aerials. And
was that your first swordfish?
Yeah. First one on rod and reel on like,
that's what I mean.
A deep dropping.
Like,
yeah.
You're just like, it's like seeing Bigfoot. You're like, dude, is this what, you know?
I'm in disbelief. I'm like, are you kidding me? Is that real? Is that how big it really looks? Are you guys seeing this? Like, is that crazy or what?
And like, dude, like this freaking worked. Like the whole thing. I mean, it's like, I remember my first time getting one deep dropping. I was like, I still think about it. I'm like, dude, I can't believe this actually worked.
It's mind blowing. Every time I see one now, I'm just like so in shock. It's so much fun. So addicting to go out and see those things on the end of your line. Oh my God. So yeah, the thing came right up. I'm like taking raps on the leader. He's right next to the boat. I got him.
And it's freaking big, dude. Like
we don't know how big it is, but it's giant. We're looking at it. We're like, oh my God, this fish is huge.
Yeah.
we're still finding the flying gaff. I mean, we're not ready to even gaff this thing. Flying gaff was somewhere.
Full chaos.
Yeah. And it's like, where's the gaff? Come on. It's probably good we didn't stick it. Like I posted about that and said it's good. Anyways, we had taken the weight off. Everything came off the whole deal because fish is right here behind the boat. It started waking up and pulling, and I didn't want to break it off. I was terrified to lose the thing, and so I let it go. It went right back down to 1,000 feet.
The classic, like you get the early shot, and on a big one, you're obviously like, you're not going to take it probably.
It just went down to 1,000 feet.
And then you're like, it's game on. That thing's like ready to rumble.
Yeah, and it just hung out down there, and it probably stayed down that deep for about an hour. And we just kept bumping the drag up a little bit and bumping the drag up and trying to put some angle on it. And finally it started coming up and came up kind of dead almost, It was hooked really deep in the guts. I mean, it was pretty lethargic. It didn't like put up a battle at the boat or anything. We came up and just finally rolled it.
All bronzed.
Finally like rolled it over bronzed in the prop wash and stuck a flying gaff in it. And that was pretty much it. It never really flopped again,
And then were you guys just like, dude, this thing is a freaking beast?
Yeah,
like how big? Like that thing was like mega, right?
It was like 14 feet from the tip of its bill to the tail.
Jesus.
It was big.
And like, what did you guys estimate the weight at?
Right at 500.
Yeah. So
our weight came between like 495 and 505 when we did our measurements, and I think those are pretty accurate. I mean, for the
just
most
so
part.
like folks listening, like we talked with Chuggy, swordfish expert in the last podcast, and that's like is like on the high end as big as they get, like our local fish.
It's the biggest one that I've heard of personally being caught here in Southern California.
It's for sure the biggest that I've heard of caught on rod and reel.
Yeah.
Since this deep drop things, maybe back in the day.
Sure.
Obviously there were some mega ones caught, but not anytime recently.
That's definitely the upper end of the spectrum, I would say, for what you're going to find out there. And I think there's fish like that out there. There's probably bigger ones.
Yeah.
There's the chance you catch an even bigger one, 800, who knows? I don't know. They get giant, but it was crazy. It was prehistoric looking, and it was full of all kinds of deep water stuff, hake and ribbony fish. And, it had a stomach full of crazy looking stuff. And so,
So you guys just cut it up?
We flopped that. Well,
you must have just like jugged the entire boat.
Well, that's a good thing about an 87-foot weaver that's built for sport fishing. I mean, that thing has no shortage of places to flash freeze and cold store. So we have huge freezer capabilities on the boat. It was great, man. We filleted that thing up, vacuum sealed it all. The meat looked great. We stuffed it all in the freezer, kept our way down. We went
crazy. What a start to your trip.
Got all the way to Alejos Rocks. Super cold water, super green, not a bird, not a bait fish, not anything. We fished for about 3 hours, never caught a fish there.
Yeah.
100% dead zone. Crazy. I was like, well, this is wild. We ran all the way from Alejos at like 32 knots, and we got into the ridge that afternoon at like 3:00 and just slammed the wahoo there and had a really like classic, unbelievable day of fishing wahoo. And then we went to Cabo, and
so you roll into Cabo, you got 400 pounds of fresh sword.
That was incredible.
You're jugged on wahoo. Like, dude, you guys had like you were so stoked on meat fish.
Banger trip, man.
Yeah.
Just a banger trip. Everybody on board was so pumped. The vibe was epic.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
so you roll in Cabo, and then what?
I roll in there, and those guys on the Stella June, Evan Salve, Seth Dubois, Jazz Moorhead, they had just brought that boat down from Huntington Beach all the way to Cabo. Had a pretty radical adventure bringing it down, had rough weather outside of Cedros and had a lot of weight on the boat, had a lot of fuel. It was pretty gnarly. I couldn't believe they brought it down. But anyways, they're in Cabo, and I'm buddies with Seth. I know Seth pretty well. Never really met Jazz. I know Evan. I've known Evan over the years, not really that well either. We've fished together once or twice, and obviously everybody knows of Evan Salve, so in some aspect or another. And so I'm out at dinner with all the guys from the Cowboy, and they're in town. And I was like, "Hey man, come meet us for some drinks, and let's all rap about our, what's going on." And they come and sit down at this restaurant in Cabo, and they're like, "Hey man, we could really use another guy for the Bisbees. Are you interested in fishing?" And immediately in my head, I'm like, "I'm over it. I don't know. I don't think that I'm really that into it. I'm not really like a super competitive person.
Right.
Tournament fishing to me is a little bit convoluted in my own mind. I fight with like, do I really give a shit? I don't know, man.
Right.
I like the idea of going out and seeing who's capable of besting the fish that day and all that stuff, but I'm not really that competitive.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
And the Bisbees, like, we're not talking just like, your average marlin tournament. Like, this is like the biggest, baddest marlin tournament that exists.
I've had some opportunities over the year and I turned them down based on various reasons. I'm kind of a selfish.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't want to go fish it with somebody that I don't really want to be around, for one. And if I'm going to go down there and do it, I want to have fun.
mm-hmm.
I want to have a good time. I don't want to get caught up in the freaking egos and the chest pumping and just the overall, kind of over the top attitude that kind of goes along with it. Like, that doesn't do anything for me, man. I don't care.
Yeah.
However, it is hard not to get caught up in how competitive and overwhelming it is, when you're actually in the tournament and you're actually competing for some money and it looks like you've might have a chance. That was incredible. The feeling is overwhelming.
Well, because it wasn't like you were getting invited to just go like on a booze cruise entry. Like Salve has had mega success. Like
sure,
he won 2 years ago. 2
years ago, yeah, and he took like the biggest payout in tournament history.
And then he did good the year before. So like you were jumping on like a contender right out of the gate, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, so they're like, hey, here's the deal. We'll give you, they gave me great incentive to jump on the boat. I like Seth a lot. I don't mind Evan, man. He's a great guy, freaking, I think Evan really means well. And I think he's gotten kind of an unfair battering from the fishing industry in certain aspects. And
I think like Evan, I don't know him that well, but it seems like when he came on the scene, he was pretty brash.
He's brash,
but he's
for sure.
Definitely matured and seems like a different person, seems way more chill and, kind of has figured out
he definitely does some things
from some of his mistakes.
He does some things that makes it easy to shake your head at and go, damn it, dude, what the hell are you doing? And then, but he's also a good fisherman, man. Evan Salve's a good fisherman. Oh,
no question. No question. So what was it like stepping into that arena, running around with Salve and his operation,
it's
preparing for the tournament and all that?
It's a lot different speed than I am. He's really fast and kind of all over the place, and he's really trying to grab a lot of different aspects of everything all at once. And it's busy and a little bit faster tempoed than me. And they brought me on to sort of be the guy that came in and was in charge of the lure side of fishing.
Because you've from all your Hawaii experience, right?
I've got a lot of experience with trolling lures for blue marlin.
Yeah,
I know how to catch. You give me lures and a blue marlin fishery, I know how to catch those fish.
Yeah.
I'm confident.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nuance in trolling for marlin. And I think that people don't realize in getting those jigs to swim right and
it's
the
on
whole thing.
There's another level that people don't even know exists, for sure. And so luckily I've been exposed to some of the best big game blue marlin fishing in the world with the guys I know in Kona. And I've been lucky to learn from some of the best. And so those skill sets really put me in a place to be desirable for a crew member on this particular setup.
Did Evan give you carte blanche, kind of control the lures? Were you picking the specific lures or was...
For the most part, yeah. I used pretty much all Tsutomu lures and a handful of other ones, but I've become pretty good friends with Garrett, who is the founder and owner of Tsutomu over in Oahu.
Tsutomu, they're doing those fish heads.
They're doing fish head inserts. He's got a pretty simple lineup of lures, and they're just made really consistently from one to the next. They're very well made lures, and they work.
Did you have lures with you, or was Evan had a spread that you'd picked from, or how'd that go?
They had some, but I brought most of my own.
Okay, cool.
I got together with Garrett and got my hands on a set, an A team that I wanted to have for the trip, and
nice.
I did all my own. Everything Evan had, I re-rigged. I did everything the way I wanted. That was cool. He gave me carte blanche to basically take control, set up the trolling system the way you want, set up your lures the way you want, and give me,
trusted you, you were rigging it all good.
Give me my dredges and I'll give you your lures kind of thing or whatever, you know?
Right.
And so
give and take,
we raised some fish and caught some blues on lures and it was cool. And that boat's interesting, when you got 4 outboards on the back, well, it's not like leadering a fish out of the cockpit of a, sport fishing boat where, you can back down and have an angler in a chair. We had no fighting chair.
Wow. I didn't even think of that.
You can't leader a fish from the back of that boat. I mean, from where you stand to the back of the outboard motors is more than 6 feet away.
Right. So you got to go.
If you had to change sides and your angle was too steep, I mean, you're not going around the outboard. Sorry, guys. So we ended up actually, once we got hold of the leader, we're in reverse and we leader from the bow.
Oh, really?
And it actually gives you just the same concept as a cockpit does. Now you go, and if I have to change sides, well, I can just go up around the bow pulpit and take them to the other side or whatever. And it actually worked really good.
So just quickly, like, tell people a little bit about that boat. It's a pretty crazy boat.
It is. Yeah. It's a 46-foot Sea Hunter and they're built in Florida. It's $1 million center console, man. You know,
it's got big engines.
It's got quad 425 Yamaha V8s on it. And, you know, it'll get up and do 70 knots without even blinking an eye.
So people that understand, like the Bisbee's does a shotgun start and you got like $1 billion. No, maybe not a billion, but like $500 million of yachts and sport fishers lined up and they like hit the gun and it's like everyone's just off, right? And you guys were like freaking flying in that thing. I saw some videos.
You got like 140 boats that are all designed to haul ass, all going at the same time. It's a lot of energy.
A lot of testosterone.
And we're starting like in the middle or towards the back and just weaving our way through these guys and leaving them so far in our dust. I mean, we would get like a full 10 to 15 minute start on making bait before any other boat showed up, except for there was a contender. There was another center console. I think it had triple outboards.
That was like the only boat that was hanging with you guys.
They'd be like almost neck and neck with us.
Was that like the program? Like you're bombing out to wherever, like the Gordo or whatever. I don't know where you guys were fishing, but then you're like, the first thing is you got to like catch some live bait. Like
Cabo was so screwed up, so screwed up for the tournament. There was a lot of gnarly weather this year. There was a lot of rainstorms and like there was a lot of leading up to that made pre-fishing tough and stuff. The fuel dock in Cabo was closed for like 3 weeks. And it was over some like political matter. Somebody didn't like somebody, so they didn't pay. And so the fuel dock,
full Mexico.
And, you know, we're leaving in the morning. We're usually the first guys out of the marina every morning. We were getting up at like 3 a.m. We'd be on the boat by 3:30, and you know, you'd go out and try and make some baits on the point or whatever. But I mean, we had to go to San Jose to get fuel.
Gnarly.
And we were getting bait in San Jose too. We were getting sardines in San Jose so that we had the best sardines ever from San Jose.
What were you using the Deans for?
We would go to the bank and chum up all the skipjacks with them, and then we'd fill our tuna tubes. And it was just, dude, when you can braille those little baby sardines on those skipjack at the bank, you get them right in the corner and just full speed, and you can go through a ton of baits to get just the right ones that aren't.
Oh, okay.
Can't tell you how many.
But probably makes a big difference being able to be like really picky with like getting like primo live bait.
You know, and it took a few days to get in the habit of really organized. Like you need one guy, all he does is net. You need 3 guys, all they do is fish. You need one guy just retying, and you need another guy like basically just brailing bait or chumming the whole time. So there's a system to making bait that's almost more important than going fishing, because without it, you're not going fishing. And so it's tough on that boat, man.
I think like I love this conversation because to me, like it's so interesting to hear just the process of making the bait is like what separates like,
oh, it's such a
it
huge,
separates
huge
the guys
deal.
that are serious and like contenders from, obviously anyone can get lucky and, you know, troll up a monster, but
yeah. And the winning fish this year was a trolled up blue marlin, you know? And so, but you know, if you look at the historical facts of the Bisbees, live baiting for blacks has taken most of the damn money.
Yeah. So I derailed you, but you got the live bait.
Well,
we've got
the ultimate West Coast crew for this, right? Like we're totally tuned
That's what
in.
we do, yeah.
We fish live bait on light line. We catch tuna on live bait. We know how to fish with live bait. We know how deadly it is when you go out with a giant tank live bait. So anyway, Stella June's got bait capacity like a freaking overnight sport boat.
Lots of tuna tubes.
Had that like 8 tuna tubes. And
that's a lot for a center console.
You know, that was the thing too. You'd make a bunch of nice baits in the morning, right at the point before the shotgun start. We could catch bait right there. We'd get up at 3:30, be on the boat ripping to San Jose at 3:30 in the morning, getting sardines. Then we'd come back to the Arches.
Oh wow!
Fill the tuna tubes right there, and then from the time we would shotgun start and get to the Gordos to make more baits, most of what we had in the tubes died from just the ride.
Oh, you're kidding.
You know, when you're going 70, man.
And shit's just flying.
You can't really frickin' do much with a bait that's in a tuna tube getting pounded at 70 miles an hour, or 60 miles an hour, whatever we would end up going most of the time. So, you know, keeping bait alive, and, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're going to have such an advantage with the speed, but the speed doesn't do anything if it kills your bait.
Right.
So, so that was something that we had to deal with a little bit. So we had to back off the horsepower a little bit to save bait.
Yeah.
But we would get to the Gordo well before most boats, and we'd usually have a good shot at making bait before most of them got there to get started, and we'd usually be out of there. And that's important, man. Being the first guy to have a line on some of those high spots and pinnacles and stones where you're fishing these blacks, being the first one there with 2 baits behind your boat and one on a downrigger could be the difference between catching that black that's hanging around there that morning or not.
Were a lot of the boats in the same areas? I mean, I'd imagine like it's Cabo, dude. Everyone knows every spot. Like,
we were all fishing.
Is everyone live baiting right next to each other?
Yeah, we were all fishing in tight quarters on the East Cape, right up there by the sand spit, just below Fraley's, right there, kind of at the top end of the grid for the tournament. Day 1, the wild hooker caught a 466-pound black marlin up there. So, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Anybody who's in the live bait games, kind of that's how it works,
Yeah.
Well, we caught a 466-pound black marlin on day 2.
I was, following the tournament on my phone. I was like, I saw you guys had got a fish, and I was like, when you guys waded in, I was like, is this like a mistake? Like,
right.
The fact to catch one.
Oh,
I mean, like, dude, the exact same weight. What the hell?
It's crazy. The freaking. All of a sudden, the rigger bait started really walking. I'm like, oh, look at the rigger. We're going to get a bite.
Is this day 1 or?
Day 2.
Okay, day 2.
So day 1, we caught and released a blue marlin trolling for whatever, a few hundred points.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's good, though.
You're on the board.
We're in the top 20 boats, starting with day 2. 466 black marlin took the daily jackpot for day 1, wild hooker, 1.4 something million. Day 2, we connect, the rigger pops. I grab the rod out of the rod holder, feed it. I'm looking at everybody on the boat. I'm like, you see the line? I'm going to set it up. Everyone's okay with me setting this fish up right now? I want approval from everyone on the boat before I go and put this thing in gear.
Oh, dude, I can't even imagine
I'm showing everyone the 80, Are you guys?
Yeah, you're like.
I'm thumbing it. You see the line, leaving it. Is everyone okay with me? Do you want me to wait longer? Okay, I'm pushing the drag up now.
Oh, I can't even imagine, man.
Come tight, and this thing comes up out of the water, and immediately we're like, oh my God, it's a good one. This is unreal. And it just put on a huge show, and we're fishing super tight quarters. There's so many boats around us.
That's crazy. Like, you get one of these ones that like rips off some line, like you gotta like, hopefully guys are getting out of your way.
It put on a pretty good show for us, man. It was fun. Yeah. And it wasn't like guys were revving off to get out of our way or anything, but it was like, the fish was definitely right in everyone's face, and it was definitely
like everyone. It's got everyone's attention.
I would have hated to be a spectator right then and there for that moment, because that's just like got to be the worst feeling to watch another boat have a fish that is a contender right next to you, and the odds of you finding one now because that one's on his line is so low,
And everyone's just like, those motherfuckers again.
So Jazz fought that fish for about an hour, and dude, it was no wind. It was like 95, 98 degrees, so humid. It got to the point, thank God there's jungle rules for that tournament now, and you can switch anglers. Jazz is a big dude. He's like,
is that like a new thing they changed, or?
It's been that way for a couple of years now, but like anybody could touch the rod now. Yeah. Anybody could fight fish now.
They probably did that to like avoid rules controversies.
Well, yeah.
Because they had some gnarly ones back in the day.
Some guy's going to drop dead from heat exposure. Jazz was like, his eyes were going to explode. His face was so red. just pouring sweat.
And you guys are doing this stand-up, right?
Yeah. And so
Does he got a harness on? Or
what? Full stand-up harness, bent butt 80 class rod and a stand-up harness. Pretty good setup. You pull hard.
Yeah.
So we switched anglers. He fought it for an hour, and then I fought it for an hour, and the fish came up pretty much dead. It was dead. It'd been like
after that long, the black marlin are never going to make it.
It jumped itself dead. So we just partied our butts off and just celebrated like crazy. We just caught the fish that's a contender in the Bisbees, and it's like got to be the best feeling I've ever felt. So much fun, so excited. Oh my God. Just ran that thing into the scales.
So when you're running into the scales, you're in this boat, center console boat. You got this freaking mega black marlin laying there. I'm sure you guys are like keeping it. Towels over it, keeping it wet.
Dumping buckets of water on it the entire way in.
Day 1, somebody's already got a 466. So.
Yeah, but all we need to do is have the biggest fish for the day. We don't care about the tournament.
You're going for the daily.
We just want the daily.
And you're staring at this fish, and you guys are like, it's big.
This big.
And what's that like ride in like? Like just like hooting and hollering and just.
Well, first of all, they've got the loudest sound system. It's like anybody will tell you that's been around Salve when he's running that boat. I mean, it's literally like you're at a freaking concert. I mean, it's so loud. There's like 30 speakers on that boat. It's just ridiculous.
What are you guys listening to?
Just the most like intense, like house beats and like gangster rap and like just a culmination of like heavy bass and like hard hitting rap music, like intense, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not really my style, but it was fun. We had a good time, you know? So we got to the scales, weighed the thing. It's hanging there. The scale's bouncing around. It's going like 466, 470, 467, 464, 466, 471, 466, 464. The guy's looking at it, and I'm just like, I don't even care. I mean, honestly, dude, I wasn't there to like win anything or do that. I mean, I was just so stoked.
Well, and it was like
we're surrounded by spectators, and we're standing somewhere with a fish on the scale in the Bisbees.
Yeah, and it was the biggest fish of the day at that point.
I already won.
Yeah,
I don't care. I wasn't even privy to this, but I guess Seth and Evan were standing next to the guy at the scale, and he goes, "Well, I'm just going to count to 3 and call it, whatever it's on." And he goes, 1, 2, 3, 466. And we're like, whatever, awesome. 466. But we're like, really? Like, that's the same exact weight as yesterday's fish. Really? You had to call 466 yet?
Yeah.
You dick.
Yeah.
Like, it was sitting there bouncing between 470 and 464. Like, you could have called 467.
Yeah. I guess like they can, they can establish however they want to come to the weight, however they want, right?
They don't count ounces. It's just pounds.
Okay.
So you can't win by ounces in the Bisbees. So that's irrelevant.
Right.
So people are screaming, reweigh it, reweigh the fish.
No way.
And we're going, well, the thing's dripping a lot of blood out of its nose.
I imagine.
We're just sitting there going, we better not go any lower than 466.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't care. You guys want to
It's not going to get heavier.
You want to reweigh it. I don't care. I'm just literally, like I said, I was so stoked. We're already here. So anyways, we've won the daily at this point, and we're just looking at a $1.3 million payout as of now, unless someone catches another fish.
What time of day is this?
This is like sometime between noon and 2 o'clock, like probably closer to 2.
And lines out at like 4.
Something
5.
like that, 4:35. I forget exactly.
So now it's a waiting game. You got to see if it holds up.
Worst waiting game ever.
Yeah.
So brutal. And of course, the true grit, Tommy Nykirk.
So how'd it play out? Like, just like you guys are, now you're like drinking beers, hanging out, just hoping nobody gets a bigger fish, right?
I'm so pumped. I don't even care.
You don't even care.
No.
But I'm sure Salve and
I'm drinking beers.
They're like,
no, this is what, so here's what happened. We weighed the fish and then I'm like, come on, you guys, we have to go back out fishing. There's still like 3 hours left to fish. And they're like, oh yeah, let's go out fishing. And I was like, let's just go run to the 1,000 right here in front of Cabo,
you never know.
And we'll go put out 4 lures and some dredges, and maybe we'll hook a blue marlin, and we'll have a bunch more points. Like, come on, hello, chop, let's go fishing.
Yeah,
we're in the tournament still.
Yeah.
So we jumped back on the boat and ran out and put lures out and trolled until line's out. And of course, right before line's out, Tommy Nykirk on the True Grit calls in a hookup. We're hooked up. And I'm getting calls from other people, and they're going, we heard this, and oh no, we think you're okay.
The rumor mill's fired up.
Somebody's deckhand saw it. They don't think it's as big as yours, and we're like, oh, sweet,
dude,
And so of course, dude, it took them forever to land it. It was kind of a prick of a fish, and they hooked it on light line, and it took them a long time.
Was it bait fish?
Bait fish, right in the same zone we hooked ours. Here they come. They're coming to the scales. The scales are packed. This is a big deal, right? Obviously, there's freaking serious competition happening now.
Yeah.
It's close. We know it's close.
Did you lay eyes on it, like before they put it up?
Mm-mm. Oh, I saw it come in on the cart.
And were you like, what were you thinking?
I looked at Seth and I was like, dude, this is really close, but I think we got it.
Okay.
It's hard to tell, right?
Yeah, totally.
So they hang it. It went 478 or 482, I think. It was 32 pounds bigger.
For 1.2 million.
But at least it wasn't 1 pound or something stupid. Yeah, they legitimately beat us.
Yeah, they legit beat you, but it's still like it doesn't like really like take that much of the pain away, I'm sure.
They beat us by 31 pounds with a bigger black marlin. But we waited all afternoon thinking for a minute that we were all going to walk away with like $140,000 paycheck at the end of this. And I'm like filling up my Amazon cart. I'm already like, I've already put myself down for like 15 different flights around the world. I'm like thinking, oh my God, if
bought a new camera,
140 grand, where can I go and how much trouble can I get into for the next year of fishing? I'm about to cross every bucket list fish off of my book. Yeah. Oh God. It was so fun.
Yeah.
To think about having that money and having it come from a fish that you caught, right? Oh my gosh. But so Tommy and a friend of mine from Kona, Kai Hoover, super guy. I've fished with him a bunch over the years. He was the crew on the boat. You know what, man? Last year, Evan pulled the rug out from underneath those guys and did the exact same thing.
Oh, you're kidding.
His fish beat theirs out by a little bit of weight. And
no way.
They were sitting in the same spot we were the year before.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be damned if they don't deserve to win. You know, I mean, they went out and caught a better fish.
I mean, what are you going to do? You got to just tip your cap and lick your wounds.
I went down and gave Kai the biggest hug ever. I saw Tommy. I was so stoked for those guys, but I would be lying if I said that there wasn't like a serious, like, oh my God, what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
We were like, how could you be so close to winning $1 million and have it taken away from you by 31 pounds in the freaking 9th inning? With the bases loaded, like, come on.
You know, I fish a lot of tournaments. I don't fish money tournaments because, you know, the tuna club, we're not allowed to, but.
Yeah, right. Money tournaments are a no-no.
I've been in, you know, tournaments where I had that same scenario happen for obviously like a lot less stakes. But yeah, dude, that's a tough position. You know, it's just a bummer, but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Hey, man, I always told myself that if I was ever given the opportunity, I was go down there and give it 110% and work my ass off and do it right. And I did. And I'm proud of what we did. And I mean, we finished in the top 5 for the biggest fishing tournament in the world. And we held our 4th place trophy up and frickin' had so much fun.
So being like hesitant going in, like, do you have a different outlook now on tournament fishing or the Bisbees, like specifically? Like, do you think you do it again? Or
I'm already locked in for this year.
Same guys, same crew?
No, I won't fish with Evan again.
No,
I won't. No reason to get into that at all. But you know, he's got his speed, and I've kind of got mine, and we agree that those are 2 different speeds. And I hope Evan has the best year yet for his fishing career and rock on, but I'll be fishing with another group of people this year, and I won't say who yet, but
do you have a good idea who you're going to fish with? Oh,
I'm all locked in. Yeah. I know exactly where I'll be. So everybody will find out eventually.
Cool, man.
And so I'm pumped about that.
Yeah. So at least you leave had a great time, and it's something now that going forward, it was something I manifested from when I was a kid. You know, I used to read about the Bisbees. My grandpa talked about it a lot. Every time the Bisbees was about to happen, he would know somebody or some people that were part of it. And he fired up this thing inside of me about it, you know, and I liked sharing that with him. And from a young age, I was like, man, I hope someday I get a chance to fish the Bisbees. And then as my fishing career progressed, I, always had it in the back of my head. And I know I've got the skill set to go down there and be an asset in this tournament with somebody. I just wanted to be with the right people, and Evan and those guys and Ivan. Because that's the way it goes, right?
That's the way it goes.
It's the top, West Coast guys, they migrate down from California and for some guys flying from Hawaii and
there's people from all over the world there,
right?
You know, people from Australia, people from South America, people from freaking Cape Verde. I mean, you got big game marlin guys from all the best places coming together to all throw their dice into a pile and see who's got the freaking juju to go get it done. And I'll be damned if we didn't come down there and give all those guys a run for their money.
Yeah, man. I think it's a testament to that whole operation. And my deal with Salve is I tell everyone, if you don't recognize and tip your cap to
yeah, man.
I mean, anyone can get lucky once, but the guy has had 3 years of success now, and he's doing something right.
I hope nothing but the best for that. Yeah. And those guys and his avenue. And, he's in a unique situation with the Stella June and the owner of that boat, Ivan. They've got the ability to capitalize on a lot of fisheries and throw the money at it to go do the big tournaments. And you know what, man? Rock and roll, bro. Right. Have some fun. We don't get a lot of time here in this place, man.
Yeah.
You better grab the bull by the horns. When you get those opportunities, you better be saying yes.
Amen, man. Well, what do you got on the docket now? What's Pack Fighter got his sights set on for the next month or so?
I'll be around a little bit. I just finished up kind of a real estate deal that's going to take up quite a bit of my time here, and I'll be focused in on that, which is cool because I'll be home for a little bit. And
sea bass season.
Yeah, and it's a good time to be home. I like the weather this time of year, and it's always when you get windows of weather this time of year, it's nice because it's not crowded. There's not a lot of tourists around. The kids are all in school. You can go out and have the whole ocean to yourself on a nice day in January, February, March, April. These are good months to be around California. So
I agree.
I'm going to be around. I'm actually taking the Cowboy down to Cabo in a couple of weeks. We're going to leave sometime around middle of the month, and the boat just had a bunch of work done up here in Newport Harbor Shipyard, and I'm going to jump on board with those guys and, cook and crew for them on the way down. And I'll go down to Cabo, and that'll be a week trip or whatever. And then, I'm kind of hoping that I get a chance to go to Namotu Island in Fiji. Dwayne Diego's been going over there for a few years now. A couple of my buddies from Hawaii have. I got my
Gabe.
buddy. Yeah, Gabe's been over there.
Down there, or is down there right now, right?
I think he's still there, maybe. But yeah, I've been back and forth with the director of activities there, Mike Hennessy, and I'd like to go see Fiji, and so there's been some talk of that happening potentially.
I could just totally picture you doing that.
Yeah, man, it'd be fun. I think it'd be a great opportunity. I don't really know exactly what to expect, but I've talked to Dwayne about it a little bit. He's such a cool guy. Hey, man, I'm an open book. When we get a chance to go or whatever, let me know. So that's cool. I really like that.
That would be sick.
So that's something that could happen in the next couple months, but nothing secured. I'm sort of a fly by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
I get a phone call and I'm on a plane a few days later a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
That's what makes me tick, man. I love it too.
Well, I appreciate you coming in here, man, so much. And I think you do a lot of the stuff the right way. And it's fun to follow you on Instagram and see all the stuff you get into. And, everybody check out Ryan on Insta and Packfighter. And yeah, man, thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure, man. And yeah, obviously we've got some history, and I've always been a big fan of what your family's done in the conservation world. And it's just super honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool, man. Well, have a good rest of the year, and thanks again for coming in.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, man.